What is up? GoodMicWork back at you as promised with video number 3 this week. We got a lot to get into, and it's not going to be a terribly long video because I have a very busy day. But I did want to come up here and give a few thoughts on various subjects like I promised that I would. I'm going to get a little bit into Smackdown, as well as the latest on the Cruiserweight Classic and the latest episode of NXT, and some more thoughts on the Dean Ambrose Stone Cold podcast, which got very interesting there near the end, and a few other items as well. First of all, for those of you who don't know, yesterday I released my top 10 favorite SummerSlam matches of all time video. It's up on my YouTube channel right now, it's on the screen, and there's a link in the description below. It's about an hour long. Feedback on it has been pretty good so far, so if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. And I do plan on doing more top 10 episodes in the future, as well as another possible new channel segment as well. So there's a lot of stuff coming in the next few months here on the GoodMicWork channel. We'll jump right into Smackdown first. Now, much like Raw, Smackdown was a pretty mediocre show. As far as which show won this week, I don't know. I might give the slight edge to Smackdown, maybe just by a little, but neither show really impressed or dazzled me that much. I'm sure things will get a lot better next week when both Raw and Smackdown have their go-home shows to SummerSlam. Brock, of course, is scheduled for Raw, and I'm sure Shane and Daniel Bryan have big things planned for SmackDown, so I think things will be a lot better this week, but this was one of those weeks where just not a whole lot of crazy or great things really happened. Just a few of the highlights of SmackDown. They, of course, furthered the angle with Dolph Ziggler and Dean Ambrose, as I predicted in last week's commentary on SmackDown, that Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler would be teaming up in a tag team to face Bray Wyatt and Eric Rowan. Very predictable. Dean Ambrose opened the show with the Wyatt family. Actually, the Wyatt family came out first, started cutting a promo. Ambrose, I think, came out and started talking back with them. Dolph Ziggler came out as well, but he couldn't contain himself, and he ran into the ring to try to brawl with Rowan and Wyatt. Once he started getting his ass kicked, Dean kind of reluctantly went in there to save him, and then in all the confusion, Dolph Ziggler accidentally hits Dean Ambrose with a super kick, and the Wyatt family is able to retreat. So later on, when Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon make the tag team match, they tell these guys that they're going to have to get along. So this is an angle that we've seen many, many times over the years. For years and years and years, they've done opponents having to team up together, and then there's miscommunication or there's a misunderstanding or something happens just to further the heat between the two of them. So not the most original booking ideas that they had this week on SmackDown, but still, I'm just happy Dolph is getting the title shot, and I kind of like this little feud that they're having. And with Dean's attitude and everything, you knew he wasn't going to just let that super kick go. So later on when they had the match with Wyatt and Rowan, Dolph Ziggler ended up super kicking Rowan for the pin, and the two of them got the victory together. And when they're celebrating, Dean Ambrose finally nails him with the dirty deeds. Very Stone Cold Steve Austin style. And how about the sign in the crowd, huh? Give Dolph Diesel. I know Kevin Nash has tweeted out some things that he would like to be the bodyguard to Dolph Ziggler, much like he was with Shawn Michaels, and then that screenshot of the two of them was right there on the front page of WWE.com. You could see the Give Dolph Diesel sign better, and that stood out more in that picture than Dolph and Dean did. So the WWE's not ignoring that, so that's either just a meaningless tease. They just want the fans to think that maybe they could bring Nash back in, or they might actually really do it. I mean, Kevin Nash is like 50-something years old. I don't know if he'd make a really believable bodyguard for Dolph Ziggler. It would be a nice throwback. It was probably mostly done just to put doubt in fans' minds that maybe Dolph could win the WWE title, because with everything else going on at SummerSlam, I really don't see the WWE title changing hands. And I think maybe WWE knows that the fans know that, so if they get them thinking that Dolph might have somebody interfere on his behalf, it could give him a better chance to win the title. But either way, I don't expect Dolph to be walking out of SummerSlam with that belt. Dean's going to keep it. There was really not much else that eventful on the show. Randy Orton had another warm-up match. He took on Alberto Del Rio. Didn't even beat him, or he didn't beat him clean anyway. It was a DQ, I believe, and then he RKO'd Del Rio at the end. Another great segment with Eva Marie tonight. She comes out there to wrestle Becky Lynch again, and you knew she was going to do something to get out of the match. You didn't know what. Last week her knee hurt, and she kind of had to forfeit. This week she's in there. She does the whole big extravagant entrance. She's got a ton of heat. I love what they're doing with Eva Marie. Even though I don't like her, I love her gimmick and the way she's presented. It's perfect for her. So she finally gets in the ring, and she's just about to wrestle, and then something happens. The camera wasn't on her, but I guess her wardrobe malfunctioned. I don't know if she reached behind her head and kind of pulled it off herself or whatever, but her top kind of fell off and she's holding it there, and the referee just says, instead of telling the ring announcer or instead of telling Eva Marie to just go to the back and fix your shit and come back, he announces that the match cannot take place. Eva is not fit to compete tonight because her fucking top fell off, and the match is canceled. And that prompts Alexa Bliss to come out. I don't know what to make of this little girl. She's hot as hell. Alexa Bliss sounds more like a porn star name than Val Venus did. So she comes out there to kind of take the place of Eva Marie and picks up the win and ends up beating Becky Lynch when Eva decides that she's ready to wrestle again, and she comes back out and the whole music plays and everything starts and it distracts Becky Lynch, allowing Alexa Bliss to beat her. I don't really know what to make of the women's division on SmackDown. I'm really not a huge fan of anybody there except for Becky. I like Becky. But Eva Marie, of course, I think is a piece of shit. And the new girls, I don't know. Alexa Bliss, a lot of people say really good things about her. She can work okay in the ring. Carmella, I don't like the way she talks down to the ring. It just kind of like makes me cringe a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is what I don't like about wrestling. Nothing against these women and their ability or whatever, but, you know, Carmella's trying to come out there and do her thing, and I'm just not into her shtick, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But she ended up tapping out Natty, so they're really trying to get Alexa and Carmella on the map here as major women players, because they most likely will be bringing a belt onto SmackDown for these girls to compete for. But right now, I'm far more interested in the women's division on Raw than I am on SmackDown. John Cena and AJ Styles didn't appear on the show. Instead, they furthered their storyline with a big, long video package, which I'm fine with, because how many times can you have these guys in the ring together cutting a promo or being in a tag team match or some of that typical shit that you see in feuds? And last week, the promo was so good between the two of them. This week, they decided just to do a really long, elaborate video package, which I think worked just fine. But what I found ironic was that John Cena and AJ were not on SmackDown, but they were on Raw. Did you catch that? Apparently, they came out for like 1 minute during a commercial break on Raw, and I think performed a small little match, or AJ got AA'd or something like that. I don't know what happened, but they were out there for 1 minute and they were gone. And I think even Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton worked a dark match on Raw. What the hell's going on here? Can you at least keep these brands a little bit separated? I know it's just for the live audience, but Christ, you know, the brand extension just took place. The draft was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you're already doing shit like this? It was a little weird. But AJ and Cena, I'm sure next week on SmackDown will have a pretty big final segment leading into their match at SummerSlam. And I was thinking about it the other day, because when I talked about John Cena most likely winning this match, which I am pretty sure he would do, because AJ has had his number so far. AJ's already got a couple of victories over him. I think John Cena is due for a victory here. However, there's a lot of other things going on in John Cena's life. He will be taking some time off to be doing other projects again, and he has a gigantic losing streak at SummerSlam. Since that debacle with the Nexus, when everybody freaked out when he won after being pile-driven on the floor or whatever, he has not won a SummerSlam match since then, has he? In 2011, he lost to Punk. In 2012, I think he lost to Punk in that triple threat. 2013, it was Daniel Bryan. Then it was Brock Lesnar. Then it was Seth Rollins. So yeah, he's lost like 5 SummerSlams in a row. So they could keep that streak going and have AJ defeat Cena, and that could be a really big feather in AJ's cap, especially if he's able to defeat him clean somehow at a big pay-per-view like that at SummerSlam. And also, it's supposed to be one-on-one. AJ's saying there's going to be no club around, no Gallows and Anderson, but Gallows and Anderson are going to be there because they have a tag team title match that night against the New Day for the Raw brand. So they are in the building. What is stopping them from coming out there and helping AJ anyway? So I wouldn't put that past them either. You know, maybe the club can still stay together even though they're on separate brands. Maybe they can come together on some of these super shows when everybody's under the same roof and help AJ out. Who knows? And another reason I think it might be a good idea to have AJ Styles beat John Cena is because they have to strike while the iron is hot with AJ. He is not a spring chicken anymore. He's in his late 30s and wrestling his style. WWE probably wants to get as much out of him as they can. They're obviously paying him a lot because when he came into the company, he didn't go to NXT. He came right to the main roster and worked with top guys. So they need to take advantage of AJ Styles while there is still time. All these years passed where they were never able to capitalize on his in-ring ability. They have the guy now. They don't want to have him job out to Cena a whole bunch of times. Now, I'm fine with Cena beating him. I don't care. But I think AJ winning at SummerSlam might be a good idea, because what if AJ's able to beat Cena? It can help elevate him to the top of the SmackDown roster. He can be a big part of SmackDown, and Dean Ambrose is going to need a challenger when he's done with Dolph. So if AJ's able to defeat Cena at SummerSlam, possibly even clean, Cena can go off to film a TV show or whatever the hell he's doing for a little while, and AJ can step up and be the next contender for Dean Ambrose's title when he's done with Dolph Ziggler. I guess Dolph and Dean might have another match after SummerSlam. Maybe they have one more at Backlash, and then after that, they start building AJ and Ambrose for Hell in the Cell or Survivor Series or whatever the future pay-per-views are going to be. And I have this feeling that AJ Styles is actually going to win the WWE title. I think he would be the best guy to take the belt off of Dean Ambrose. Think of the matches those two guys can have. Think if they had a program that spanned 3 pay-per-views, how awesome that would be. And when you think about John Cena in his future, if you have AJ Styles beat John Cena at SummerSlam, and then he goes into a feud with Dean Ambrose throughout the fall and winter and winds up beating Dean Ambrose for the WWE title, John Cena could eventually come back and get his victory back and win the WWE title again in the future, tying him with Ric Flair or whatever. So if they want to do something like that with John Cena, give him one more final run on top, they could give AJ the run first. AJ can beat him at SummerSlam, become the number 1 contender, take the belt off of Dean Ambrose, maybe Survivor Series, and then face John Cena at the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania for the belt. Who knows? I mean, what would be wrong with that? I mean, AJ Styles is such a legendary figure all over the world. To put him against another legendary figure in the WWE, I have no problem with that feud spanning a year. Why not? The only other thing that I found amusing on SmackDown was during one of Renee Young's interview segments, The Miz and Maurice were there at the table with her, and the two of them wind up laying on their stomachs on the table facing each other and like kissing. It was the most hilarious and ridiculous shit. The Miz and Maurice are awesome together. I was laughing so hard watching that segment. Of course, it was all ruined a little while later when I saw the Miz and Scooby-Doo segment, which made me want to fucking kill myself. But that shit that they did with Renee Young, to me, I think might have been the highlight of SmackDown. I was cracking up. Now, to backtrack a bit to the night before SmackDown, after Monday Night Raw, Dean Ambrose was on the Stone Cold podcast. I had only watched like the first 10 minutes of it, and I mentioned just a few words about it in my Raw review, but when I came home, I finished the rest of it and watched the rest of it because when I was reading the Twitter feed, a lot of people were commenting on how it got really weird at the end there. And it just seemed like an overall awkward interview, and Dean Ambrose had a few interesting things to say about a few people. So I went back and I checked out the interview, and I did like the rest of it and like what I heard, but it was a little weird. Like, Dean Ambrose really seemed like he was getting under the skin of Steve Austin because he wasn't really showing any passion. Dean is like, he's just a laid-back, yeah, whatever dude. I would have thought Dean was stoned off of his ass. I know that's his personality. He's very matter-of-fact. He gives off this very chill vibe, which I like. I'm the same way. But Austin continually tried to ask Dean Ambrose some questions that Dean just kind of wasn't answering very well. He was just very kind of spaced out. He wasn't speaking with any sort of passion, and Austin is like, you mean to tell me when the WWE called you and offered you a job that you were like, yeah, whatever, you weren't jumping for joy, you weren't freaking out, nothing like that? Austin wanted so badly for Dean to talk about his passion for wrestling and how he got into it and all these experiences, and Dean just wasn't being very interesting with some of his stories, and I think it was legitimately irritating Stone Cold, especially when Dean was being very vague on his childhood. There was a few things there that I could tell that Dean probably just didn't want to talk about. I don't think he had necessarily a really traumatic childhood, but you know, he had some issues, and he was a troublemaker, and he didn't have a whole lot of direction when he was younger, and it's something that he probably just doesn't want to talk about. He was most likely a pothead. I doubt he was into any hardcore drugs, but he definitely at least smoked weed when he was younger, and he talked about him being a troublemaker and shoplifting and things like that. So Dean Ambrose definitely didn't live the most respectable childhood a kid could live, but he turned out okay, as we can see. I love that he was a big fan of Bret Hart, because, you know, he was born in 1985, so he was kind of young for Hulkamania. By the time Hulk Hogan was winding down, Dean would have only been 5 or 6 years old. So when Dean got old enough to really start watching wrestling, Bret was on top. So Bret was a really big influence to him. The Brock Lesnar comments were pretty amazing as well. He talked about his match at WrestleMania that we all thought was a huge letdown. I was saying before WrestleMania, when I was coming up doing all my prediction videos and everything that I was talking about, I was calling for Dean Ambrose and Brock Lesnar to steal the show. I thought, as crazy as Dean Ambrose was, he was going to do some amazing and very creative things to Brock Lesnar in that match, and I even predicted Dean to win. I don't mind that Dean lost, but it's how he lost. It's how he ended up going down to Brock after all that build-up, and all he did was get suplexed on a bunch of chairs. And we all said, what the fuck, man? That was supposed to be a really fun and awesome match, and it was not. And apparently it bothered Dean Ambrose as well, because Steve Austin brought up Brock Lesnar and the match at WrestleMania 32, and Dean kind of said that he tried to do everything he could to make that match epic. He pitched idea after idea after idea, and he was met with quote-unquote laziness from Brock Lesnar. Brock didn't want to do anything. He didn't want to cooperate. You know, Brock still went out there and did business and everything, but it just didn't seem like he wanted to work very hard to make this match a show stealer, because it really could have. When you look at the rest of the card and what a letdown it was, especially that main event, Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose had a chance to save this show. And Dean Ambrose is putting the blame on Brock Lesnar, which I found really interesting. The ending was kind of awkward, too, when Austin kind of challenged Dean to really push the envelope more, and Dean kind of really took offense to that. He's like, you know, I do push the envelope. What the hell are you talking about? It looked like he did not appreciate that comment from Austin at all. But the whole podcast ended on a very positive and light note. I love the ending when Dean said he knows the counter to the stunner, which was pretty funny. So the two guys shook hands and parted ways peacefully, but there were a few moments there in that podcast that were a little tense and a little awkward, and I'm not sure if Dean is ever going to want to do one of those again. I was also able to check out last night's edition of the Cruiserweight Classic. We are now into round 2. Round number 1 is completely finished. I went back and watched a couple of those episodes in round 1. There was a few matches I wanted to see. I think I've only come up here and done a commentary on the Cruiserweight Classic after week 1. So I haven't really talked about the other episodes that concluded round 1. But I think most definitely my favorite match of all of them, of the first round, was Gargano and Ciampa. That was fucking great. I absolutely love this Cruiserweight Classic. It's so different and so fun to watch. It's such a nice breath of fresh air. They do such a good job of profiling these athletes and talking about their backgrounds and their histories, getting the fans as familiar with them as possible, and they're doing a great job. I cannot wait for the Cruiserweight division to kick off on Monday Night Raw. Now, from what I hear, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the winner of this tournament going to be crowned the new Cruiserweight champion and get a contract to WWE? Is that the plan? Are they going to enter Monday Night Raw with the title? I think they should. What's the point of holding another tournament when you've done this epic tournament with all these guys? The winner of this should be the champion. So hopefully that's what they wind up doing, and as soon as the Cruiserweight Classic concludes, they can kick off the Cruiserweight division on Monday Night Raw. Last night's episode saw 2 matches. Tajiri losing to Grand Metalik. It's so good to see Tajiri back in this thing. He is 45, 46 years old, something like that. He's even done a few things with William Regal on the website and a couple of skits on the YouTube channel or whatever, which is hilarious because those two guys have a ton of history, as we all know. And that match was pretty damn good, but the show stealer was Cedric Alexander versus Kota Ibushi, which was unbelievable. Those guys, amazing job. I've been really impressed with Cedric Alexander, and he ended up coming up short. Ibushi, I don't know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Is he the favorite to win this thing? Will he most likely walk away with that title? I'm thinking he will, but I could be wrong. But the match was amazing, just absolutely amazing, and the fans gave Cedric the "Please sign Cedric" chant, and that prompted Triple H to even come out. Cedric is kind of doing the tearful farewell to the fans, and, you know, I gave it everything I had. I came up short. This isn't going to be the last time you see him, hopefully, and Triple H then comes out to give him that little rub as well. The crowd popped for it. Now, I have a buddy. I talk about him all the time, the guy that I've gone to all the WWE shows during the Attitude Era and all of that. He's been a referee in the independent scene in North Carolina for about the past 15 years or so, and he was talking to me just a couple of weeks ago that Cedric Alexander has already signed a contract with WWE, so that kid is too good to pass up, and it sounds like they have signed him, and he'll be a big part of that Cruiserweight division. I loved him. It's probably one of my favorite things going on in WWE right now is that Cruiserweight Classic. I think Mauro Ranallo and Daniel Bryan make a perfect commentary team. Daniel does so well getting excited about things. I mean, he's screaming, he's yelling, he legitimately seems like he's having a good time out there watching these guys work. I wasn't sure if it would drive Daniel Bryan crazy that he's not in the ring himself, but he seems to really enjoy the role that he's in as commentator there, and so far he's doing an okay job as the GM on Smackdown as well. So I'm happy for Daniel that he's doing something that he loves. But this Cruiserweight Classic, I cannot wait to see some more of these second-round matches, and as we get down to the end, if these matches aren't already good enough as it is in round 1 and 2, wait till we get down to the final 8, the final 4. That's going to be some great shit. I was also able to take a peek at the latest edition of NXT. Now, they're building towards NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, which is the night before SummerSlam in the Barclays Center. It's going to be 15,000 people. The 2 big title matches for that show are going to be Samoa Joe taking on Shinsuke Nakamura and Asuka defending against Bayley. Now, they had the contract signing between Asuka and Bayley tonight. It was okay. I really like Asuka. She might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite woman in all of WWE right now. I cannot wait till she comes up to the main roster because she is a badass. But the contract signing itself wasn't very good because Asuka doesn't speak very good English. And when they tried to talk to each other, it just came off as a little weird and there was some pushing and shoving going on or whatever. But that was a contract signing that they probably didn't need to do on air. I didn't find it that entertaining. But, they're trying to make it a big deal. They're trying to talk up the women's title. William Regal was there to expedite the whole thing, and I'm guessing that Asuka is going to successfully defend against Bayley, and hopefully Bayley after that can come on up to the main roster full time, possibly the night after SummerSlam. Bobby Roode also made his appearance, and how about that theme song? Everybody's been talking about that. I opened up this commentary with it. Andrade Cien Almas had just won a match, and then the glorious theme hits. Bobby Roode comes down to the ring, cuts a promo on him, says that he talked to Commissioner Regal earlier on, and he's made a match at NXT TakeOver because it was missing something that's glorious, and he feels he should be a part of the show, so Regal booked him in a match against Almas at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. So that'll be Bobby Roode's big in-ring coming out party, at least on TV. I think he's worked some of their house shows a little bit, but we'll get our first real look at him, I guess, at NXT TakeOver, and it's great to see him in NXT, and everybody's talking about that theme song. There's definitely some critiques of it. One thing about a lot of the WWE's theme songs right now, and they're great. Finn Balor's theme is probably my favorite one of all of them. Shinsuke Nakamura is badass. I love Asuka's theme, and Bobby Roode's, of course, is awesome, but they spend so much time on those big parts of the song, those choruses, that a lot of the rest of the song is just looped too quickly, or it's not all very creative or whatever. So the in-between parts of that glorious chorus during Bobby Roode's song is a little bit generic, but the vocals in that and the sheer epicness of it is awesome. And one of the first things I thought of was one day when Bobby Roode works a WrestleMania match. Hopefully he can do that this year. It might take another year if he has to spend some time in NXT, but can you imagine him coming out at WrestleMania and WWE doing one of those elaborate entrances with him and having a big choir and chorus perform that song? How epic would that be? For some reason, that's like the first thing I thought of when I heard that new theme of his. But it suits him perfectly. It's an awesome theme. And WWE's on a roll right now with those theme songs, especially in NXT. They have got some hits. Speaking of Samoa Joe, he of course is the NXT champion, defending against Nakamura at NXT TakeOver. He had a match tonight against Mojo Rawley, that annoying motherfucker, and luckily Joe ends up tapping that guy out, prompting Nakamura to come down, and they kind of have a stare down. Security kind of has to keep them separated or whatever. So that match should be pretty damn good at TakeOver. Austin Aries is also going to have a match. He interrupted and went into Commissioner Regal's office and demanded to be a part of TakeOver, so Regal booked him in a match against No Way Jose, who I've only seen like one or two times. I don't even know that much about him, but you can pencil that match in for TakeOver as well. So NXT seems to be rolling just as strong as ever. I'm really looking forward to that NXT TakeOver show the night before SummerSlam. It's going to be a really fun weekend, and I'll be up here live tweeting and reacting to just about everything during SummerSlam weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before I get out of here, just a couple of other news tidbits to touch on. Two people are gone from the WWE officially. Number one, Ryback, which we knew he was on his way out. I guess he hasn't been officially released, or his contract was just up or whatever. He's free to go do other things now and accept bookings, so you can see Ryback on the independent scene, I guess. Not a big loss there. I was never a big fan of Ryback. I mean, I liked him as a person. Every time I heard him in an interview, I thought he was a pretty down-to-earth guy, pretty cool, pretty chill, pretty laid back. He definitely seemed like he worked hard and had a passion and had a respect for wrestling, but I was just never a fan of his in the ring, on the mic. Nothing that he really did other than his look impressed me. So the fact that he's gone, I am not shedding any tears for that. And also a front office release as well. Joey Styles gone from the WWE. Apparently this was kind of a surprise. I don't know the story on it. I don't know why Joey Styles has been released. He was a big part of WWE's website and YouTube channel, I believe. I don't know if he was in charge of those or whatever, but he did something as far as the internet and social media goes in the front office there. He was the head of something, and he was let go by WWE. Some people are saying it had something to do with a Facebook interview. Some of his responses pissed WWE off, and they ended up letting him go because of it. I don't know the full story. Maybe you guys do, but Styles is gone from the WWE. So other than that, there's really not much else I really feel like I need to talk about. I apologize for the shortness of this video, but I got a lot going on. I didn't have time to come up here and talk for an hour about this stuff, so I apologize for the condensed reviews of Smackdown and NXT and the Cruiserweight Classic, but it's really all I have time to talk about this week, and I'm sure in upcoming weeks I will elaborate more, and I will definitely get a lot more in-depth on the Cruiserweight Classic now that we're getting into that second and third round. And we've got the finals coming up right around the corner, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So between now and SummerSlam, there's going to be a lot going on. SummerSlam is less than 2 weeks away here. So next week, after Monday Night Raw, I will probably come up and do a review, although, like I've said every week, I'm going to play it by ear. If Raw completely sucks, I'll wait and come up and do both shows at the same time, but I seriously doubt I'm going to do that because Brock Lesnar is booked, it's the go-home show, some big shit might happen, so I'll probably come up here after Raw with a short video. And then probably Wednesday, I'll ignore the Cruiserweight Classic and NXT this week. I'll probably come up on Wednesday, talk about SmackDown's go-home show, and give you SummerSlam predictions at the same time. And then as far as SummerSlam weekend goes, I do plan on watching NXT TakeOver. I don't think I'm going to be home to watch it live, however, which sucks. But I will come home that night, I'll watch the show, and I'll come up and give a short reaction on it super late on Saturday night or early on SummerSlam morning. And then, of course, I'll be live tweeting all day on SummerSlam before the show, during the show, and after the show. I will come up immediately following SummerSlam and give you a review and a reaction on that. So there will be a lot of content coming to the Good Mic Work channel in the next 10 days. So thank you very much for listening to this. Leave me all your comments on SmackDown and NXT and the Cruiserweight Classic and SummerSlam and the Ambrose and Austin podcast. Anything else you want to talk about, feel free to tell me in the comments below, and I will catch you in just a few days. Until then, peace.